Hey folks, this is the Awesomecast. We're currently hiding in a little alcove at AWA, and today we have a very special guest for this, our first ever Awesome interview, with Gina Biggs.
Hello, this is Gina Biggs.
The author of the webcomic Red String.
And like the head overlord of the collective Strawberry Comics.
Yes, Women in Comics is very good.
The first thing I wanted to ask for everything else, the way I found Red String, I was thinking to myself, dadgummit, why aren't there like more girly comics? Because I really like girly comics. I like shoujo romantic stuff. And I was thinking, I clicked to Penny Aggie while I was thinking this, and I was like, oh, there's this thing called Red String. And I clicked and went, wow, was exactly what I was looking for. So why did you make a comic specifically for me?
It's because there are so few American romance comics. I started reading comics. I read Conan and X-Men, and I was reading X-Men for, the romance stories. And after a while, I got sick of, breaking up, getting together, and no resolution ever.
Right.
One of the great appeals that I found in manga is that, you have a certain number of volumes and you get a complete story. You don't have a corporate comic where it just continually goes on and you get no satisfaction ever. And, I went to a lot of comic conventions, and even the small press people, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of romance, and that's what I like to read. Not so much the really, the softcore porn stuff.
Right.
But the stuff about relationships.
Exactly.
And, I found other girls out there, and, we all, that's what Strawberry Comics is. It's about love and romance. Not always romance love, but, there's platonic and dark love and comedic and all different types of relationships. I wrote one about my love for my dachshunds. But it's nice to have a variety, and that's what we're trying to do.
Which really, even a lot of anime and stuff, it's hard to find that sort of thing because a lot of it now tends to be like shonen boys love. That's the popular stuff now, and it's like, oh, that's cool, and I want to see more actually the romantic parts, and that stuff usually tends to be more
and
hardcore, and just I don't want to say trite, but it's very much, oh look, they're boys together. There's not so much about the evolution of actual characters growing up.
It's become kind of a catch to try and get a gimmick almost for a lot of comics I've seen. Boys love and yaoi is great, when it's done right, but I see a lot of comics out there going, we have boys love, we have men together, and it's like, okay, is that all your comic has? Does it have story? Does it have structure? Does it have good paneling? What else do you offer?
And does the yaoi itself have a progressive relationship instead of just being a catch-all gimmick?
Yes, and that's like when I wrote, I guess, shoujo into the story, it was because it was important that I show all different sorts of love. With Red String, I'm focusing not just on heterosexual love, it's all different points, but I'm trying to give it all a very human type face. I'm trying to write it as realistically as you can for a drama romance series.
Right. Which I've totally noticed. Like, I noticed there's a very large cast of characters, and they each have their own different aspects of love in them.
And the relationships evolve and move. It's not like some comics where it's a static almost state that they'll progress and then snap back and progress. These actually, you feel the relationship's building and moving, and it's very refreshing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the things I like. While I love shoujo, it's sometimes it's kind of frustrating where the main characters will get together, break up, get together. I feel like I'm reading X-Men again, and Rogue and Gambit's relationship. It's
right.
like, oh my goodness, how many times can you break up and realistically end up together?
Mm-hmm.
And with my two main characters for Red String, Miharu and Kazuo, they've had a pretty happy relationship. They've had a few bumps, but nothing that would make you go, why would you ever get back together with this person? That's horrible. If I was dating that person, I wouldn't have gotten back together with them. So, right now they're experiencing real trouble in the story, and it's like only the second real time they've had anything like that, and it's just, and if they get through it or not all depends. One of the main things I always want to do is question, is it fate or is it just you make your own path?
Right.
all those paths have consequences, and I try and keep that in mind when I'm writing. And even a lot of times when I am writing, if I write something, I'm like, wow, that's so dramatized and so melodramatic. I have to consider, is this realistic? Would something like this be able to happen? I don't want to go totally Desperate Housewives, torching houses or whatever, it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't happen like that. So.
And that sort of, I don't mean to, that sort of thing really shatters your perception of disbelief if so it's really, I really like the way you do that. So.
Thank you.
I was curious, how do you come up with your names for your characters?
Actually, I love to look up the kanji for the names and see what relates to the characters. I have a friend who taught in Japan for 4 years, and we sit down with, my Japanese word editor and her knowledge of it, and sometimes we'll make puns on the characters based on, like there's the astronomy club president, and her name's Seiko Hoshikawa, and it has star and planet in the kanji in her names, and
That's neat.
and most of the characters, like Hayashihara, the three brothers, I had the main male character Eiji. He has the number 2 kanji in his name, and then his younger brother had 3, and then people were shocked when he had an older brother, but if you saw the 2 and 3, second son and third son, the eldest brother who showed up way later on, his had the number 1 in kanji, and it was like, if
naming
sometimes,
foreshadowing.
Yes, even I like to get like that. I do that with flowers and stuff when I put it in there too. They usually always have a meaning when I put it in.
I notice in a lot of your panels you also tend to have various effects, like backgrounds and stuff, like flowers and sometimes patterns. How do you choose what to use when?
Well, sometimes, people will debate me on some of the ones I use, but I've been trying to use them less and less as well. I've been doing a lot more hand-drawn backgrounds. But sometimes, it's just a matter of, what the story calls for. Sometimes I'll even just leave them blank because you need a pause in what's going on. And, obviously when there's all like lovey-dovey stuff, you want sparkles or flowers or the characters being sickeningly sweet or falsely sweet. She's followed by sparkles and flowers, but it's so false, and it's just depending on what you're trying to emphasize.
What's your typical workday?
Oh my, I get it easy. I wake up, get my husband to work, go back to sleep, get up around 11.
Nice.
And from there, I take care of all the since I work at home, I take care of house stuff, and then I go into working on answering emails first off in the day and taking care of all that type of stuff. If I get orders, I get them prepared, stuff like that. And then I get into drawing, whether it's, I'll flip back and forth between being on the computer doing toning or coloring or, scanning and lettering and stuff like that, and going back to my art desk and drawing, and I'll work at least 8 hours, but it's hard to time because it's really nice to be able to get up and go do something else and come back. And that's pretty much what I do, and that's how I keep from stressing out when
Right.
I'm, I don't have to focus on, I don't have to be just churning out a page. I could sit there and do 5 pages at once, or I could sit there and do 1 page, go do something else, and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have my art desk and my computer desk in a, 90-degree angle, so I just, roll my chair back and forth and...
Do you have a comic buffer?
Oh, yeah. I have about a month buffer.
Whoa, that's impressive.
Well, see, I start posting, page 1 of the current chapter, and it starts post those, and as I'm doing that, I'm working on the next chapter. So by the time I finish the current chapter, putting it up online, I've finished drawing and setting up and having the next chapter ready to go. Mm. And, I can't imagine doing them like the night they're due. And I like to keep each chapter consistent, so I'll draw all the pencils all at once and have them ready. And then when I ink them, they all look very, if you stop for a few days, some people, they can, pick up a pencil and be so trained that they can have it
Right.
perfect every time. But, from chapter to chapter, my work is evolving, and I like to keep it. I'd hate to do start the beginning of a chapter and have it look one way, and then maybe 15 pages down have it starting to look kind of different. At least chapter to chapter, so it flows better.
I noticed you would rejoin the first chapter over again to make it flow.
Yeah, I had when I first did it, I had done it was supposed to be a one-shot story for the Rising Stars of Manga contest for Tokyo Pop way back 6 years ago or so. And I didn't make it, but by the time they had announced the winners, I had already started planning out my series, and I didn't want them to pick it up anyway. I was like, no, I got this whole series planned. If they pick it up, that's the end. So luckily, it didn't, and eventually got picked up by Dark Horse, who lets me do what I want with the story.
Yeah, Dark Horse is wonderful from what I hear.
So how'd you pull that one off?
Dumb luck. They came to me. Or maybe not luck. They found it, they asked if they could publish it, and I said sure.
I could see how that would be. Okay, now to switch more on the Strawberry comic side, since it is the sweetest taste in comics, what are your favorite sweets?
Oh, wow.
We do the hard-hitting questions here on the podcast.
Let's see. Oh, my goodness. Melty Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
That is fantastic, and I have not been able to find it in a few years at least. It's a winter product from Japan, and it's bitter chocolate. Well, it's dark chocolate, and then it's got bitter chocolate dusted on top.
Yeah.
Oh, it's to die for. That and yuzu flavored haichu, which is also hard to find because it's seasonal, and it's like this citrusy. Yeah, those and chocolate covered cherries. I know those aren't a Japanese snack, but I've loved those since I was a kid.
Sweets are sweets.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to start Strawberry Comics as the collective thing?
Well, we started out with, a genera name, and people didn't get it. They didn't know what we did. And back in the day, I was really associated with a Sailor Moon website that I ran. So people just assumed that was an extension of it. And then there was Moonstone Comics, which was way too close to our name, and we decided to change it when one of our distributors actually gave us the wrong order because they were giving us Moonstones Comics order, and we were like, this isn't us. And then, I looked into the meaning of, strawberries are meant to represent sweet romances. So we thought that would be great since we all like to do romance comics. And yeah, so.
Now, how did you meet the other creators that are involved?
Well, let's see, Robin, who does Ganbare Shimura-san, and most recently Cardboard Angel. I saw her comic online, and I thought it'd be great to team up with her and do an anthology series. So I asked her if she wanted to join me in my adventures. And then this past year, I put up open submissions. And I got 3 other people joining us. Amy, we had worked with our anthology series. I had invited her to join us, and then invited her to join as a full-time member. So some of them, I actively went out and recruited, and then other ones came to me when I put the submissions up.
So if another lady cartoonist decided that Strawberry Comics would be a neat thing to try and work for, how would they go about looking into that?
Well, right now I've got the submissions closed, but we do have a submissions page up on the site that tells you what we're looking for. We don't do right-to-left comics because we're writing for Americans. Most likely our comics will not be published in Japan. We're not writing for Japanese artists. Even though we do write some stories set in Japan, we're writing, and when I write Red String, for example, if I have Japanese things in there that won't be understood, I put notes in there, and one of the great things is I get people saying, wow, I didn't know that. I'm actually learning something when I read your comic.
Yeah, and I noticed that too.
And so, we don't want just overtly Japanese characters for the sake of being Japanese.
Right.
If you're going to write about Japan, study up on it and know what you're writing, or write about somewhere else. There's a lot of stories that could be told about other countries as well. Mm-hmm. And, my next story I'll probably be setting in America, another one I might set in France. You never know. It's you don't have to be from Japan to write about Japan. that's one of those stigmas out there.
Right.
It's, you know, it's a difference between researching and knowing what you're writing about. You know, the guy who wrote Galaxy Express 39 didn't live in space.
It's true.
You know, but he wrote a space adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, you know, there's plenty of people writing about medieval Europe. I'm sure they didn't live in that time period, but they researched it. They knew what they were writing about, and when they wrote it, it was convincing. And that's important when you're writing a story. And obviously, we're not looking for action-adventure stories.
Right.
We're looking for love and romance. It doesn't have to be in the manga style. We would actually like to branch out and get a lot more stories that are done in different styles, too. You know, I'm a big fan of manga style, but there's so much more, and that would allow us to touch more audiences as well. We have a couple right now that are in a very different style, and they go over really well.
Notice that you had the sweetest taste in comics, and I thought that was really good. So a lot of people are like, manga. Or there's the American manga, or Manga, and World Manga, and all these other names that, you know, Tokyo Pop and others are trying to shoehorn into creating. It's all manga, and it's like, you know, they're comic books.
Yeah, and there's two schools of thought on that. There's one that in Japan manga means, you know, comic. Well, that's what people use it as, to mean comics. And, you know, they'll refer to X-Men as manga sometimes. Other times they'll say comics. You know, it depends on what it is. But, you know, in America, it's come to mean comics from Japan.
Yeah.
Whether that's the true meaning of the word or not, that's what it means here. Kind of like otaku has come to mean something else. And hentai. All those things have come to be associated with something else here. And after seeing that, and, you know, we do write comics. We're Americans, we write comics. That's our word for what that sequential art is. We call it comics here. And that's what we're writing. We're not trying to pretend to be something else. We're just writing what we like in the style we like, whether it's manga inspired or not. We still like to call ourselves comic book artists. So,
okay, since we're going to wrap this up sort of shortly, so I think I could talk to you for a lot longer about this sort of stuff. Who do you root for? Dr. Horrible or Captain Hammer?
Malcolm Reynolds. I think he could beat Captain Hammer's ass. No, but I definitely go for Dr. Horrible. I feel so bad for him. And, you know, after watching it at least 50 times, I would have to say that Captain Hammer got really dark towards the end.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was, you know, I'm going to take what you want. He was going to blast Dr. Horrible away with his own, you know, with his death ray.
Yes.
What hero will blast somebody away with a death ray? He's supposed to be a good guy, quote unquote. And he got really, really, I mean, he was always cheesy and, you know, kind of a jerk, but there's a very big difference between that and getting as dark as he did in the end. And, you know.
Did you ever read the little comic book they had attached to it?
Yes.
Where he suddenly starts just punching out Dr. Horrible, and he's just in line.
Yeah, it's really sad, and, you know, turn in your friends and, you know, the geeks and the people we are, turn them in. They could be evil. You know, well, some of us are, but, you know.
That's true.
You know, I felt really bad for Dr. Horrible, you know, but it was a great villain origin story.
It was.
It truly fit, and I really enjoyed it. It was clever and just fun.
Yeah, I don't think it was intentional, but I noticed it came out right at the same time The Dark Knight came out. And both, you know, sort of the origin of Dr. Horrible and Two-Face, in a sense, was kind of similar in how their loved one dies right in front of them, or it's sort of not really their fault, but sort of their fault anyways.
Yeah, I actually missed the first wave of Dr. Horrible. I had no idea what it was when I was so focused on The Dark Knight at the time. And then, like, last month I found Dr. Horrible. I saw, like, all these, my friend Robin, one of the girls in our group, she was doing fan art for it, and I was starting to go, what is that you're drawing? And then another friend played it for us when we went over to their place, and I was like, oh my god, this is really cool. What is this?
All right. I got 3 more questions.
Okay.
First one. Is Mihara ever going to dye her hair back?
Oh. I hope she does.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are lamenting the fact that she's gone back to her birth hair color, with so many characters with darker hair, was one of the reasons I had originally done her hair that way was to make her stand out among all the other characters. But and I was going to leave it blonde, but for the story, at the last minute, I decided that doesn't fit. It's not realistic. Once again, it's not realistic. In Japan, in a if it's not a delinquent school, quote unquote, they'll actually take hairspray, like a hair colored spray, and spray their hair if they've dyed their hair. They'll make it look black, just so that they conform and look that way.
Wow.
So if Miharu had gone into that school with her blonde hair, they would have taken her and done something to make sure that she looked, even if it looked crappy, they would have made sure her hair was black. So I couldn't realistically go, but I'm hoping somewhere, somehow, someday over the rainbow, something will happen with that.
One of our other co-hosts, he wasn't here, but he wanted me to ask, do you fear the Jawa? He has a thing for Jawas, and so he'll constantly ask people this question.
Only if I was a robot.
Okay. And then finally, we decided this is how we're going to end all our interviews. Just how awesome are you?
I'd like to think I'm pretty decently awesome. I came up with that Fear My Cuteness shirt, which is going pretty awesome, and I think that qualifies a few steps up. But I think the whole published by Dark Horse gives me a few brownie points there. But
thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure that we'll get you an email to let you know when this will probably go up later on this week. This has been the Awesome Cast. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
Look on our website for the URL for Red String
and StrawberryComics.com.